everybody. Thank you, James. Thank you for setting the scene of London 1950s. Welcome back to part 2 of the Pinter Project. I'm Siobhan Dunne and I'm going to be your host for this evening. And thank you for returning. Mountain Language and One for the Road are not comfortable theatre experiences. Both these two political short plays were written in the 1980s, and it's clear that Pinter was passionate about giving a voice to the unheard, the underdog, throughout the course of his life. Part 2 of this evening, we're going to be exploring his beginnings as a writer, and we'll be dipping into a few rehearsed readings and performances performed by members of Blue Door. But first, I'd like to introduce you to our special guest, our guide and navigator through Pinterland. Please welcome onto the stage theatre critic and writer Irving Wardle. Welcome, Irving.
Thank you.
So, we've called part 2 Knowing Harold. But before we go there, Irving, I think it's only right that we shall attempt a brief introduction to yourself, knowing Irving. Irving, you were born in Bolton in 1929, and your father worked as a professional actor at the Manchester Gaiety Theatre,
Right, yes.
pre-World War I. Your mother was a concert pianist who sadly passed away when you were 6 months old. Your father became a theatre critic and translated some of the Italian playwright Pirandello's work. Henry IV was performed by Albert Finney, no less, at Pitlochry Theatre. Richard Harris in the West End. Theatre and music were a fundamental part of your family life. A scholarship to Wadham College and a place at the Royal College of Music fast forwards us to 1958, post-war London. So before we go there, Irving, can you tell us why Pinter?
Why Pinter? Yes, you might just as well ask, why do we talk to each other? Which was a question that often went through my mind as a child, hanging on to my grandmother's hand while she talked on and on and on to someone she'd met in the street. Why did she do it? Later on, the same question came back when I was at school and still later in the army. Loud, assertive exchanges between people who really didn't have very much to say. And then, little by little, the light started to dawn. And as it seemed to me, my granny's chat with her neighbours was mainly a reason for staying together in the same group and feeling cosy, very much like, well, exactly like today's social messaging. It's not communication, it's massage. And as for the schoolboys and the squaddies later on in my life, again, it wasn't comfort they were looking after. They wanted supremacy, and so conversation was really an alternative to a punch-up. And if they ever did listen to each other, it was to find a moment where they could dive in and take over control of the group and achieve dominance in that way. So a lot of human speech has got nothing to do with ideas or information or feel true emotions, though you'd never know it from what often passes for dialogue in works of fiction, which do give the impression that people, when they talk about the past, are really giving you an authentic account of their own history, or that they're expressing real emotions when they have extravagant expressions of affection. I spotted. It wasn't until I first saw a Pinter play that I really spotted that this kind of dialogue was a lie, and that what all too often happens in conversation is it's masquerading as all these other estimable things, but it's kind of one-upmanship system, or means of getting in charge, dominating, or needily claiming someone else's affection, and that we came finally to the conclusion that we have no real... If we want characters on a stage to be true to life, we really have no more right to know anything more about them than what you could pick up by overhearing conversation at a bus stop. However, that's only a small part of Pinter, but it's somewhere perhaps we might start.
It's a good place to start indeed. 1953 to 56, during that time Pinter was a jobbing actor. He did a lot of repertory productions, over 100 repertory productions touring in Ireland and in the UK. And Billington writes in his brilliant biography, The Life and Work of Harold Pinter, it's no accident that the two best English dramatists to have emerged in the late 50s was Pinter and John Osborne, and both were products of the educative treadmill of weekly rep. So you first came across Pinter with the birthday party. Can you tell us a bit about the birthday party?
Well, the birthday party, at least for the first 10 minutes or so, would have seen entirely familiar territory for the 1958 audience. It's set in a seaside boarding house, not at all an unfamiliar location, and what we first see is a bedraggled landlady serving up breakfast to her husband, who's a deck chair attendant, all very familiar ground. Then we meet their one and only lodger, who is an ill-mannered layabout called Stanley, who insults Meg, the landlady, and talks wistfully about his past life as a concert pianist. Why, we start wondering, is he telling all these lies about his past, people he's living with? If indeed they are lies, we don't know. And then presently, two more characters arrive. There's a fast-talking boss figure called Goldberg and his sinister sidekick, McCann. They both have a sinister interest in Stanley, and by now, the 1958 audiences must have been sitting back thinking, this is all very interesting. What is this ingenious playwright? How is he going to resolve these questions that keep piling up at such alarming speed? But they waited in vain, because they had just set foot in Pinterland, where it's up to the audience to clear up the mystery.
So shall we have a little look at a scene from the birthday party?
Sit down. Why should I? If you want to know the truth, Webber, you're really beginning to get on my breasts.
Really?
Well, sit down.
No.
McCann,
Nat.
ask him to sit down.
Yes, Nat. Do you mind sitting down?
Yes, I do mind.
Yes, no, but it'd be better if you did.
Why don't you sit down?
No, not me, you.
No, thanks.
Nat,
What?
he won't sit down.
Well, ask him.
I've asked him.
Ask him again.
Sit down.
Why?
You'd be more comfortable.
So would you.
All right. If you will, I will.
You first.
Well,
Right, now both of you had a rest, you can get out!
that's a dirty trick. I'll kick the shite
No,
out of you.
I stood up.
Sit down again.
No, once I'm up, I'm up.
Same here.
Oh, you made Mr. Goldberg stand up.
It'll do him good!
Give him a seat!
McCann.
Oh, get down in that seat!
Webber. Sit down.
You better be careful.
Weber, what were you doing yesterday?
Yesterday?
And the day before? What were you doing the day before that?
What do you mean?
Why are you wasting everybody's time, Weber? Why are you getting in everybody's way?
Me?
I'm telling you, Weber, you're a washout. Why are you getting everybody's wick? Why are you driving that old lady off her conch?
Because he likes to do it.
Why do you behave so badly, Weber? Why do you force that poor old man to go out and play chess?
Me?
Weber, why do you treat that young lady like a leper? She's not the leper, Weber.
What the?
What did you wear last week, Weber? Where do you keep your suits?
And why did you leave the organisation?
What would your old mum say, Weber?
Why did you betray us?
You hurt me, Weber. You're playing a dirty game.
That's a black and tan fact.
I mean, who does he think he is?
Who do you think you are?
You're on the wrong horse.
Hey, when did you come to this place?
Last year.
Where did you come from?
Somewhere else.
Why did you come here?
My feet hurt.
Why did you stay?
I had a headache.
Did you take anything for it?
Yes.
What?
Fruit sauce.
Enos or Ambrose?
And
Did you stir properly? Did they fizz?
no, wait.
Did they fizz or didn't they fizz?
He doesn't know.
You don't know. When did you last take a bath?
I have one every...
Don't lie.
You betrayed the organisation. I know him.
What? What can you see without your glasses?
Anything.
Take off his glasses. Weber, you're a fake. When did you last wash a cup?
Christmas before last. Lying
Where?
still in the house.
Where's your wife?
In...
Answer!
What wife?
He's killed her.
Why did you kill your wife?
What wife?
How did he kill her?
You throttled her.
That's it.
There's your man.
Where's your old mum?
In the sanatorium.
Yes.
Why did you never get married?
She was waiting at the porch.
You skedaddled from the wedding.
Oh, he left her in the lurch.
You left her in the pudding club.
Oh, she was waiting at the church.
Weber, why did you change your name?
I forgot the other one.
What's your name now?
Joseph!
You stink of sin.
Yeah, I can smell it.
Do you recognise an external force?
What?
Do you recognise an external force?
That's the question.
Do you recognise an external force responsible for you, suffering for you?
It's late.
Ain't late enough. When did you last pray?
He's sweating.
Did you last pray?
He's sweating.
Is the number 846 possible or necessary?
Neither.
Wrong. Is the number 846 possible or necessary?
Both.
Wrong. Why do you think the number 846 is necessarily possible?
Must be.
Wrong. It's only necessarily necessary. We admit possibility only after we grant necessity. It is possible because necessary, but by no means necessary through possibility. The possibility can only be assumed after the proof of necessity.
Right.
Right, of course right. We're right and you're wrong. All along the line.
All along the line.
Where is your lecturing leading you?
You'll pay for this.
You stuff your face with dry toast.
You contaminate womankind.
Why don't you pay the rent?
Mother defiler.
Why do you pick your nose?
I demand justice.
What's your trade?
What about Ireland?
What's your trade?
I play the piano.
How many fingers do you use?
No hands.
No society would touch you. Not even a building society.
You're a traitor to the cloth.
What do you wear for pajamas?
Nothing.
You verminate the sheets of your birth.
What about the Albigensic heresy?
Who watered the wickets of Melbourne?
What about the blessed Oliver Plunkett?
Speak up, Weber! Why did the chicken cross the road?
He wanted to. He wanted to. He wanted to.
He doesn't know!
Why did the chicken cross the road?
He wanted to. He wanted to.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
He wanted.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know which came first.
Which came first?
Chicken, egg, which came first?
Which came first? Which came first? Which came first? He doesn't know.
Thank you, thank you. So Irving, You reviewed the play under the pseudonym of Sancho, and the review that Irving wrote is on the back of your programmes, by the way, courtesy of the British Library. And from that review, Pinter wrote you a letter. And that's the first contact you had with him.
Yes.
Would you read for us the letter that he wrote you?
Yes. This came from, was redirected from the offices of the Bolton Evening News, Mealhouse Lane, Bolton, and it comes from 373 Chiswick High Road, London, W4, dated June the 29th, 1958. Dear question mark, I read your comments on the birthday party in the Bolton Evening News with great interest. They were most penetrating, I thought. Why, in heaven's name, didn't you review the play in London? There was a marked absence of such intelligent and perceptive comprehension. What is behind Sancho? I should very much be glad to know who you are, and so would a number of other people who I've shown your column. Your observations were really highly stimulating. Can I express my great pleasure at your assured assessment of the whole matter? Yours sincerely, Harold Pinter.
Thank you. So, how was the play received by the public and the old guard, the London theatre critics?
Well, so far as one can tell, London public greeted it with bewilderment, and they didn't book any. They voted with their feet, and the play was off within a week. As for the reviewers, they reconfirmed the old truism that going to see a lot of plays and reviewing them teaches you to be a shrewd judge of the second rate. In other words, you can pass a reliable judgment on the kind of play you've seen hundreds of times, but if anything new comes along, you're absolutely scuppered and you don't know. In this case, I think they were the victims of the sense of entitlement, because you go to see a lot of plays, you get the idea that you're entitled to know the history of the characters, you're entitled to believe them when they tell you something as a fact, and you're entitled to believe everything that comes out of their mouths unless directed otherwise. With Pinter withdrew all these supposed essentials to see how a play could survive without what had previously been regarded as necessary equipment. But the reviewers, they put the boot in because rather than trying to work out what he was doing, they decided he was incompetent, and they followed a rule made down by a leading member of their number, a man called Bernard Levin, known in the trade as the kosher butcher, who had this rule, when in doubt, attack. So they did, and that seemed to be the end of Harold Pinter's career after the first week.
So he wrote you the letter, and then there was the first meeting. Tell us what happened with that.
Well, we met at a riverside pub on a Saturday when it was very crowded, and there were, how am I going to recognise this person I'd never met? But there was no problem in recognising him, whatever, because he just looked more distinct than anybody else there. Everybody else looked blurred in comparison with this dark figure with flashing eyes and decisive movements, whom I immediately said, Harold Pinter. He said yes. It had a barking sort of voice, even when he was being quite friendly. And we got to know each other a little bit then, and wound up the meeting with a game of bar billiards, which he won, of course, because he was a highly competitive person. But it turned out that we were living as neighbours. I was in Grove Park Terrace, Chiswick. He was on, as the letter says, 35775 Chiswick High Road. So we started meeting each other, and I got on with his wife, Vivian, who taught me to drive, and in return, she wasn't very assured of her singing voice, so we had some sessions with my old upright piano going through some Noel Coward songs that she was.
And Vivian was an established actor, wasn't she already?
She was a senior partner. Yes, they met in repertory, and she was a senior actress in the repertory circuit. She had, most unusually, her own motor car, thanks to which she taught me to drive when we got to know one another. So the situation between them underwent a dramatic change once he started to get professionally successful. because she'd been a success in her own right before she got married to him. But after the marriage and after his success, she became increasingly well known, but only as a performer inside Pinter's work. And she came to define what people thought of as the Pinter woman, which was a person who was poised, provocative and powerful, who had a gift to cast the kind of project the male of the animal's sexual fantasies in a way that some people found irresistible. She specialised in audible underwear, for example, the ability to cross one leg over the other and so as to make the two legs scream as the nylon coincided with the other. It's absolutely intoxicating.
It's a whole new range there, isn't it? Audible underwear,
yes,
brilliant.
It's all gone. It's all gone, that.
Can you tell us a little bit about Pinter's love of Beckett? Because obviously he came across him when he was touring in Ireland,
yes.
But Beckett wasn't really published in English until the 50s.
No, I think something did come out in the 30s, but it was very, very obscure.
Right.
And that was what Pinter found to begin with. His first bit, Beckett's first novel, Murphy, which he loved, and then of course got in touch with the other works. He idolised Beckett from first to last. I think if you'd asked him, which I never did, he would have said it was because Beckett always told the truth. He completely disproved Eliot's statement that humankind can't bear much reality. It's all reality in Beckett. And the same is true of Pinter. They were specialised in truth-telling, irrespective, and for which reason I initially doubted whether Pinter was ever going to be a popular success. I was so wrong about that. And likewise Beckett. But the other thing is, if there's one line that either of them wrote that echoes through both their works, it comes out of Endgame, which is Ham's line, "Something is taking its course." You don't know what that something is, but you know at the end there's going to be blood on the carpet. But in other respects, I think they're very different writers, because what you get from Pinter is you get a merciless display of the behaviour of other people. What you get in Beckett is the sound of your own voice, the sound of what's going on inside your own head.
More internal rather than external. You've talked before about Pinter-like things happening, that he would just enter a room or situations would occur and it became a Pinter-like event.
Yes, he had the ability to transform social events. One atmosphere would be there and he would come and completely disrupt it. One example of that was when his world-orbiting play, the Caretaker, first opened. Pinter turned up on the threshold of the Observer, by then I was working, saying, "I want to see Ken Tynan's review." I said, "Well, okay, let's go down to the Stone, which is where the pages are made up, and see if we can get a copy of it." So we went down and we saw a compositor. This is an old world speak for someone who converts copy on the page into hot metal print. And our compositor for the Observer on that occasion was a Mr. Lucas, who was very good at his job but never been known to speak. So Harold promptly engaged him in conversation, said, "So you've had quite a number of critics through your hands, Mr. Lucas." To my amazement, Lukey opened his mouth and he said, "Yes," he said, "the best of them was J.C. Truin." He said, "What clean copy that man had." He gave me a book he'd written once about Cornwall. Very good. Boring, but good, he said. So not only Harold persuaded him to speak, he'd also got him to deliver a Pinter speech. So that was one example of what he could do.
And you said that Pinter's characters are often just waiting to be discovered. What does this mean?
I think he didn't talk about how it was private territory. He was very, very wary about talking about that, but he did talk about following his characters rather than creating them. And what happened, I think, from both from what I remember, what he told me, and also from other sources, is that again and again his plays originate either in some memory of something, an action by a friend or someone he'd met fragmentally, not someone he knew well, so just a momentary meeting, or just what the French poets used to call a donné, a tantalising linguistic fragment that challenges you to pursue it and see where it leads to. And of course, it's not new. If you go back to the 16th century, you find Dryden talking about his job being to push darkened objects into the light, which is quite a good description of what Harold was doing. Never impose your will on a character, it'll revenge itself on you by dropping dead. So you follow where the character leads, and with luck it'll give you a complete work in the end. If not, you drop the work. Well, I hope you better luck next time, which I think is what happened after his initial success. He had a dead period of not being able
after
to write.
After the Caretaker.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look at a scene now from the
Yeah,
Caretaker.
Caretaker.
We'll bring that into light. Thank you.
Like a sandwich?
What?
Yeah, one of these.
Don't you pull nothing?
No. It's still not understanding. I can't help being interested in a friend of my brother's. You're my brother's friend, aren't you?
Well, I wouldn't put it as far as that.
Don't you find him friendly then?
Well, I wouldn't say we was all that friends. I mean, he's done me no harm, but he's no particular friend of mine. What's in that sandwich?
Cheese.
That'll do me. Thank you, mister.
I'm sorry to hear my brother's not very friendly.
Oh, he's friendly. He's friendly. I never said he wasn't.
So,
No thanks. I just make him out exactly. I can't make him out.
I forgot the pepper.
I just can't get the hang of him, that's all.
I had a bit of beetroot somewhere. Must have mislaid it. Can I ask you advice? I mean, you're a man of the world. Can I ask you advice about something?
You go right ahead.
You see, his trouble is,
What?
it's not a very nice thing to say.
Go on. You say it. Go on. You say it.
Don't like work.
Go on.
No, he just doesn't like work, that's his trouble.
Is that a fact?
It's a terrible thing to say about your own brother.
Aye.
He's just shy of it. Very shy of it.
Sounds like it to me. I know the sort.
You know the type.
I've met them.
Stands to reason, man. When you've got an older brother, you want to push him on. You want to see him make his own way. You can't have him idle. He's just doing himself harm, that's what I say.
Aye.
He won't buckle down to the job.
They don't like work.
Work's shy.
Sounds like it.
You've read a type, have you?
I know that type.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met that sort.
You see, I'm a working man. I'm a tradesman. I've got my own van.
Is that a fact?
He's supposed to be doing a little job for me. I keep him here to do a little job, but I don't know. I'm coming to the conclusion he's a bit of a slow worker.
They don't like work.
What would your advice be?
Well, he's a funny bloke, your brother.
What?
I'm saying he's a bit of a funny bloke, your brother.
Funny? Why?
Well, he's funny,
What's funny about him?
not liking work.
What's funny about that?
Nothing.
I don't call that funny.
Nor me.
Now you don't want to start getting hypocritical.
No, I wasn't getting that. I was just
Don't
saying.
get too clear.
No, what I meant to say.
Cut it! Look, I've got a proposition to make to you. I'm thinking about taking over the running of this place. I think it could be run a bit more efficiently. How would you like to stay on here as caretaker?
What?
We're quite open with you. I can rely on a man like you around the place, keeping an eye on things.
Well, I've never done no caretaking before.
Doesn't matter about that. You just seem like the capable sort of man to me.
Well, I'm a capable sort of man. I've had plenty of offers in my time, there's no getting away from that.
I could see. When you took out that knife, that you wouldn't let nobody mess you about.
Oh, nobody messes me about, man.
You were in the services, weren't you?
Oh, aye. I was overseas, I was like serving, I was.
In the colonies, weren't you?
I was over there, I was one of the first over there.
That's it. You're just the person I've been looking for.
What for?
Caretaker.
Well, look, I mean, who's the landlord here, him or you?
Me, I am. I've got the deeds to prove it.
Oh, well, I don't mind doing a bit of caretaking for you. I wouldn't mind looking after the place.
Of course, we'd have to come to some small financial agreement, mutually beneficial.
Well, I'll leave you to reckon that out, like.
Thanks. Just one thing.
What's that?
Can you give me a reference?
Eh?
Just to satisfy my solicitor.
Well, I've got plenty of references. I just got to get down to Sidcup. I've got all the references I need down there.
Where's that?
Sidcup. He's not just got my references down there, he's got all my papers down there. I know that place like the back of my hand. I was going down there, I've got to go down there tomorrow. I mean, I've got to get down there or I'm done.
So we can always get these references if we want them.
I'll be down there any day, I'm telling you. I was going today, only I was waiting for the weather to break.
Ah.
Listen, you couldn't you get me a pair of good shoes, could you? I've got a bad need for a pair of good shoes. I can't get anywhere without a pair of good shoes, see? Do you think there's any chance of you picking me up a pair?
Thank you. So the Caretaker, major theme, territory, yeah? And you said that it's been based on Pinter's own experience of living at 373 Chiswick. So after his first play, The Room, which really influenced the Caretaker was where his career took off and grew, and he was known internationally. And this is where you then coined the phrase comedy of menace?
Well, I mustn't take credit for that. In fact, that term was invented by another playwright called David Campton, largely forgotten now, which is a shame because he was jolly good. And he came out with a collection of short plays under the title Laughter and Fear, including what I would call a post-atomic or post-atom bomb comedy called Then, which was a duologue for a girl and a man, both wandering around with brown paper bags with eye slits, saying things like, well, I tried telephoning my friends, but they were all out. In other words, the rest of the humanity is gone, blown to smithereens or dissolved into small puddles. We're the last two, but it's still making. Now, the problem with that is the word comedy, because it was a very effective piece, and so were a number of other plays which featured horror and under the turn of comedy in those days, but they weren't very funny. But the thing about Harold Pinter is right from the start, from the first play that you mentioned just now, The Room, they were laugh out loud funny. You knew there was probably something terrible was going to happen, but meanwhile they'd have a jolly good laugh.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about The Dumb Waiter, that one-act play?
The Dumb Waiter is a good example of that, because that is one of the inspirations for The Dumb Waiter is an Ernest Hemingway story called The Killers, about a couple of hoods going into a bar to kill a Swede who doesn't actually turn up, but and it's got all the elements that you find in Pinter's The Dumb Waiter play, which is also about two hired gunmen who are out on a job, and it turns out that one has actually been hired to kill the other, who was killed at the last minute, which is a good twist that Hemingway doesn't have. But the other elements they have in common is that these kind of sinister, sadistic cat and mouse games with characters weaker than themselves, mixture of banality and horror. Both you can't really pick between the two, except that no jokes in Hemingway. It's just dead serious and sinister and frightening, and it's got the repetitions of speech too, which also comes very much in Pinter.
And Pinter was a big fan of thrillers and American gangster movies.
American gangster movies, film noir. He first time I met him.
Buñuel as well.
Buñuel, very much Buñuel, because Buñuel is outrageous and disturbing things happening in very, very ordinary surroundings. So you have a dinner party going on, and suddenly the army burst in, but the guests take refuge under the table, but they keep on having dinner. You keep having a hand coming from underneath the table to seize a pork chop and take it back underneath to eat. Pinter could have done that, I think, and the place is going to blow up, people are going to have their throats cut, but meanwhile you've still got the pork chop.
So Pinter draws heavily on his Hackney childhood, his adolescence and early adulthood, and as you said, the language of interrogation, stabbing dialogue, but there was a gentler side, as you said, there's the comic side, and what I find stunning reading about the Hackney Downs School for Boys was that not only Pinter came out of that school, but so did Stephen Burkoff a decade later. And that's really a shout out to drama teachers everywhere, infusing and creating artists for tomorrow. So we've talked about territory being a key element of Pinter's work, the landscape of Hackney, Springfield Park, Upper Clapton, Thistlethwaite Road, there we are, managed to get that right. Perfect, yes. The family home formed an important part of the emotional landscape as his canon of work grew. We've seen a section from the birthday party. I really love the fact that when he was questioned about why he was a conscientious objector, that it wasn't kind of ideological reasons really, it wasn't religious reasons, he just didn't like being told what to do. And his family, his father, bailed him out of the court 3 times rather than take up service, national service after the war. And Lady Antonia Fraser has said that regarding Pinter and anyone telling him what to do, I don't think Harold would accept anything except the laws of cricket without question. He was a great cricket fan, wasn't he?
He had his own team, I think.
Oh, did he?
Yes, and this fellow I mentioned before, Kent Tide, had said you could divide modern English playwrights into the cricket players and the football players. And something like David's story, or would be definitely on the football side or the rugby side. Yeah. Pinter and Tom Stoppard and maybe David Story would be the cricketers. And in fact, I mean, there are bits of Stoppard you can think of as very close to Pinter, like that famous speech in The Real Thing, where one character talks about analyses a cricket bat and it links it up with the idea of writing a really good speech where the purpose of both is to make something travel a long way. A perfect description of the way, the way Pinter moulds some of these speeches. They really travel inside the theatre. And
it's clear that loyalty with his old Hackney school friends was really, really important to him. And obviously Henry Wolfe, who died recently, just before Christmas, a very important friend, childhood friend.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Henry Wolfe.
Oh, Henry Wolfe was a diminutive actor, writer and raconteur, and you can't really divide his public from his private life because he performed incessantly, and I think this was partly a matter of Jewish pride. The group from Hackney, they were mainly Jewish boys, not all of them, but most were Jewish boys. And
it's that wit and that humour and that speed of communication.
Yes. And Harold Pinter got very cross if anybody said that his plays related to the Jewish community, because his business was in transcending any kind of local loyalty. But nevertheless, the loyalty to these old pals was very, very strong indeed. And in Henry's case, it was a kind of lifelong mission, and he was an embattled comedian and a great student of military history. And he was out batting for the Jews, you know, scoring sixes over the boundary all the time. And he, of course, it's a well-known story, was instrumental in getting Pinter's career as a playwright going, because Henry he was doing a postgraduate degree at the Bristol University drama department.
He had to choose a play.
And he had to choose a play, and he said, I know a brilliant playwright friend of mine. What about, oh yes, okay, do that. Yeah. This play was not written yet. So Henry sent a quick postcard saying, write your play. And Harold said, well, it'll take 2 months. But in fact, it turned out within 3 days. He sat down and wrote the room.
And that was the room.
That was the room, yes.
So,
which was put on in a converted squash court. And then a man called Duncan Ross, who ran the university drama department, was rather envious of this. And he put it on again in much more conspicuous surroundings. And first time it was done, it was brilliantly funny. When Duncan Ross did it, there wasn't a laugh. So Henry was very unforgiving about that.
Yeah. So, Irving, there is so much to mine out of you, and every time, you know, we've talked about it, and we've talked through how this arrangement would go. There's things we've kept in, there's things that we've kept out, but we've now come, I think, pretty much to the closing of our interview. I just want to say to people that it's been a long day, but Irving is happy to stay behind at the end of this evening. Sure. And if you've got any questions for him, in particular about Harold Pinter, you know, we can certainly do 5-10 minutes post-show Q&A. So if you want to hang about at the end of the show, please do. We are going to close now on the last rehearsed performance, and that's from a piece called Black and White, from a review written called Pieces of 8. And the Black and White is based on a milk bar in Fleet Street. So tell us a little bit about that.
There's not very much to say about the Black and White. It was open 24 hours a day, apart from when they, as you will discover, when they shut it briefly to have a scrub round during the hours of darkness. And it was near to another place called Hanging Sword Alley, which was a favourite tippling joint for the Express. It goes back several hundreds of years, Hanging Sword. You used to have to go down there and leave your sword at the door so you don't duel and kill anybody before you finished having your pint. It was the kind of locale that appealed very much to Harold, because he had years and years.
He was a night owl, wasn't he?
He was a night owl. He didn't have much money. He'd be round there having soup and a piece of bread. What he learnt there, I think the best thing he ever did learn was that you can turn Cockney speech into poetry by observing the rhythms, finding patterns in it, and what seemed like drivel, and what at the beginning of this interview I was talking about as just comfort speech and massage becomes quite an elevated form of poetry, and it makes you laugh and cry at the same time.
So we're going to cross over with our two performers, Black and White. A little bit of a scene change music, wouldn't go amiss. Thank you.
You got the bread then?
Didn't know how I was going to manage it. In the end, I put the plates on top of the soup.
Like a bit of bread in the soup.
Did you see that one that come up and spoke to me at the counter?
Oh,
Comes up to me. He says, "Hello," he says. "What's the time by your clock?" Bloody liberty. It's just standing there getting your soup.
it's tomato soup.
"What's the time by your clock?" he says.
I bet you answered him back.
I told him all right. I said, "Go on," I said, "why don't you get back into your scraggle?" I says, "Clear off out of it before I call a copper."
Not long got here.
Did you get the all-night bus?
Yeah, got the all-night bus straight here.
Where from?
Marble Arch.
Oh, which one?
294. That takes me all the way to Fleet Street.
So does the 291. I see you talking to two strangers when I come in. Do you want to stop talking to strangers, old piece of boot like you? You mind who you talk to?
I wasn't talking to any strangers. There's another all-night bus gone down. Gone up the other way. Fulham way. That's a 297. I've never been up that way. I've been down to Liverpool Street.
That's up the other way.
Don't fancy going down there. Down Fulham way and then all up there. Never fancied that direction much.
How's your bread?
Hey?
Your bread?
It's alright. How's yours?
They don't charge for the bread if you have soup.
They do if you have tea.
If you have tea, they do. You talk to strangers, they'll take you in. Mind my word, coppers will take you in.
I don't talk to strangers.
They took me away in the wagon once.
They didn't keep you though.
They didn't keep me, but that was because they took a fancy to me. They took a fancy to me when they got me in the wagon.
Hey. Do you think they take a fancy to me?
I wouldn't back on it.
You can see what goes on from this top table. It's better than going down to that place with the embankment anyway.
Yeah, not too much noise.
Oh, there's always a bit of noise.
Yeah, there's always a bit of life.
They'll be closing down soon. Give it a bit of a scrub round. the wind out. I wouldn't mind staying.
They won't let you.
I know. Still. Fairly close for an hour and a half, don't they? It's not long. You can go along, then come back.
I'm going. I'm not coming back.
Oh, when it's like, I'll come back, have my tea.
I'm going. I'm going up to the garden.
Oh, I'm not going down there. I'm going up to Waterloo Bridge.
You'll just see the last 296 come up over the river.
I'll just catch a look of it time I get up there. Don't look like an all-night bus in the daylight, do it?
Thank you. So, thank you everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. It just remains for us to say our thanks to the Bull Theatre, to Joseph, Vince, David, and to our wonderful musicians, Nick, Ned and James. We need to get all the members of Blue Door out onto the stage, that's lovely. And most importantly, our guide for this evening through